Hello students, a very good evening to all of you. Welcome to my channel. This is a very important class on Know Your Text series part 16, and today we will talk about the detailed summary of Amitabh Ghosh's novel The Shadow Lines. But before starting, I want to give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is Brishti Mukherjee. I have qualified NTA UGC NET exam in English literature 4 times and have also qualified West Bengal SET examination. I have 2 years of teaching experience. Moreover, I have also taught in NPTEL online course from IIT Madras 3 times. So that is all about myself. Good evening Rajkishore, good evening Pooja, good evening Elena, welcome. This is the link of my Telegram channel. The link is also given in the description box. So those of you who have not joined yet, please join to get notification of all important classes. And also please don't forget to like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel so that many more new learners can join. These are the timings of your classes Monday to Friday at 8:30 p.m. and Saturday, Sunday off. So don't forget to join me live. Please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to get notification. Okay, so let's start. We have already read Amitabh Ghosh as an important Indian English novelist. And in the last Know Your Text series, we have discussed the detailed summary of James Joyce's Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Good evening, Papdi. Welcome. So in today's class, we will talk about the detailed summary of the shadow lines. So as you all know, the shadow lines was divided into two parts, going away and coming home. So in today's class, we will talk about the detailed summary of going away. So Shadow Lines is a very important novel by Amitabh Ghosh, his most famous novel. And Shadow Lines is important in Indian English literature from the perspective of and also from uh, the perspective of diasporic theme or the theme of diaspora and also the theme of partition. These two things are very important in the novel Shadow Lines. We will talk about a critical analysis of the novel also after completing the plot summary. Okay, तो चलो start करते हैं Shadow Lines का first part, that is going away. Okay, so the story opens and before starting the plot summary, I will tell you one thing, that Shadow Lines is written in such a way, it has combinations of past and present, flashback and flash forwards. So sometimes it appears to be like a stream of consciousness novel. It just shifts from past to present, but it is not exactly stream of consciousness, because here we have properly a narrator who is narrating his life story. At the same time, he is narrating the life story of other characters. So it is not in the format of internal monologue, but it has that kind of combination of past, present and future. Okay, so obviously it has a historical base also. So in the first chapter, not chapter, in the first part, going away, the story opens in 1939, which is 13 years before the narrator's birth. So the story starts 13 years before the narrator's birth. And there are major characters introduced in the first part. Maya Devi, Sahib, and 8-year-old, 8-year-old Tridib went to England. So the character of Tridib is very important because Tridib is very closely associated with the narrator, and Tridib is actually the narrator's uncle, but the narrator respects him a lot as a person who knows everything. Okay, so Tridib went to England. The narrator is recalling his past memories, and now Tridib is 29. Obviously, narrator did not see the childhood time of Tridib, so he cannot now imagine that how Tridib is now 29 and how could he be when he was in his childhood. So the story opens with that. The narrator is recalling his past memories, and this recollection This idea of nostalgia, this idea of diaspora is very evident throughout the novel, and it can be most appropriately seen in the second part of the novel, that is coming home. Okay, so coming back to the summary, the narrator is recalling his past memories and he thinks that Tridib resembled him in his childhood. He feels very much closely attracted to Tridib, but narrator's grandmother, that is Thamma, she has sheer aversion towards the character of Tridib, because towards the character of Tridib, because Thamma believes that Tridib is a loafer kind of boy, and he doesn't have any kind of sense of time. He has nothing to do, he only wastes his time and money. So Thamma is a very strict lady. Actually, she was an headmistress, so she valued discipline and perfection so much. Absolutely, उनके अंदर ये सारी चीजें हैं. So she knows the value of time and she believes that Tridib should not waste time like this. And she always tries to keep away Tridib from the narrator, because she believes that narrator can also be corrupted if he mixes up too much with Tridib. Good evening, Gitu. Welcome. Acha, okay. Yes, class has started. So Tridib often visits the narrator and tells him stories. तो इसलिए त्रिदीप को बहुत पसंद करते थे नरेटर, बिकॉज त्रिदीप टेल्स हिम सो मेनी स्टोरीज एंड त्रिदीप हिमसेल्फ इज अ वेरी एडवेंचरस बॉय. तो वो मतलब गॉसिप करके ही बहुत सारे बात वो बताते थे नरेटर को, which appears to be very much fascinating for such a young boy. The narrator is drawn towards him in spite of Thamma's disliking. Good evening, Dinesh. Welcome. Yes, American literature will start soon. Don't worry. American literature will start soon. So, हाँ, तो जो मैं बता रही थी, the narrator is drawn towards him in spite of Thamma's dislikings. And Tridib का character क्या है? We will also talk about Tridib's character in our critical analysis. Tridib loves to eat very much. And Thamma एक बहुत proper term use करते थे while describing Tridib, that whenever he comes to nurse his stomach. This is a particular phrase which Thamma has used always for Tridib. That Tridib always comes to nurse his stomach, which means he loves to eat. When he comes, he immediately needs the restroom, and that particular situation of Tridib is known as Tridib's gastric. ये बहुत ही एक famous term था जो narrator and उसके family के अंदर बहुत popular था. Tridib's gastric. Tridib loves to eat, but he has gastric problem. So the narrator was just a little boy then. He could not understand what is gastric. Rather, he believes that Tridib may have a special organ called gastric. ठीक है, तो ये एक फनी इंसिडेंट है. नैरेटर को ये मालूम नहीं था कि गैस्ट्रिक क्या है. Hamma believes that he can have a negative influence on his grandson. That is why she is very cautious. Tridib spends most of his time in Calcutta, though his rich family stays outside. Actually, Tridib belongs to the family of Price family. प्राइस फैमिली से त्रिदीप बिलोंग करते थे, तो वो बात में है उसके फैमिली के बारे में. So Tridib loves to spend his time in Calcutta, but Thamma considers it as a frivolity. There is nothing to do in Calcutta. Tridib is just wasting his time. So Thamma believes that he is a rascal, so he never gets any job or any girl to marry. He is like a hedonist person in that sense. But actually ये बात सच नहीं है कि त्रिदीप का कोई काम नहीं था. Actually Tridib was a research scholar and he was doing PhD on archaeology. PhD in archaeology. Yeah, archaeology is a very interesting subject. Right? The narrator learns about Tridib from his best friend Montu and the local shopkeepers. So Tridib has a very fascinating place, that is Gol Park. Gol Park in Calcutta. Tridib often visits Gol Park and the narrator pines for spending time with him. So in the first section of the first part, we find so many interesting details about Tridib. and the narrator's association with him. But Tridiv's character is actually an object of mockery for the local people. The narrator loves Tridiv, the narrator enjoys the adventurous stories, but the local people thinks in the line of Hamma, and they believe that yes, Tridiv is a very peculiar kind of person who does nothing but only spends his time in just wandering through the street. So Tridib becomes an object of mockery. Nobody believes that he belongs to a rich family because he is completely different from his other family members. When the narrator was 9, Tridip suddenly vanished for a few weeks. त्रिदीप कहाँ गए थे वो बाद में आकर लोगों को ये बताते हैं कि he has stayed with May Price in England and she is very much attractive and kind to him. तो जैसे लोग ये कहते थे कि त्रिदीप cannot have any girl in his life, तो त्रिदीप आकर लोग को बताते हैं कि I went to England and I met a very prestigious family, that is Price family, and the Price family has only daughter May Price, who felt attracted towards me, and she also behaved very kindly. But the narrator knows everything. The narrator protests that he has seen Tridip few days back. Narrator ये बात कह रहे हैं कि क्यों आप rumors फैला रहे हो, आप तो यहीं पर थे, कैलकाटा में ही आप थे, मैंने आपको देखा था. Tridip explains that no, this is the real incident. Price family really exists, and the Price family once invited his father to come. So Tridip acknowledges that yes, I have not gone to England just few days back, but I know Price family. This is true, and we have an association. We have a relationship because Price family once invited my father to visit. The narrator has to search a lot for May. Narrator wants to meet May Price. तो अब ये एक दूसरे जगह में जा रहे हैं, मतलब narrator is imagining the whole thing. तो अब तक हम प्रेजेंट की बात कर रहे थे, बट ये थोड़ा सा फ्लैशबैक में जा रहे हैं. शिप मे प्राइस के स्टोरी के बारे में बात करें, इट इज एक्चुअली अ काइंड ऑफ सब प्लॉट towards the main story. She plays in an orchestra and he is enchanted by it. May plays in an orchestra and the narrator feels very much enchanted by it. He talks to me after the concert. She cannot exactly recall the same boy she saw so long ago because narrator was very young at that time. एंड उसके बाद जब नरेटर गए हैं मे प्राइस से मिलने तो वो बहुत बड़ा हो गया है, तो मे प्राइस कैन नॉट रिकॉग्नाइज हिम. But finally, when she realizes that it is that little boy, so May Price feels very happy and she takes him to her room. In her room, the narrator sees a photo. Good evening, Jyoti. Welcome. In her room, the narrator sees a photo, and that photo was clicked when she was in Calcutta. So May Price explained everything about the photo, the nostalgia associated with the photograph, and she sent it to Tridip. ठीक है, तो ये बीच में एक दूसरे स्टोरी आ जाते हैं, फिर से हम वापस आते हैं प्रेजेंट में. आफ्टर टॉकिंग विथ Tridip so many times, after mixing with him, the narrator realizes that Thamma has a very wrong perception towards Tridip. Thamma wrongly judges Tridip. Actually, Tridip is not a rascal. Tridip is not a person who has nothing to do. Rather, he is a very knowledgeable man who can take me through my imagination. He and his cousin Ila often talk about this. अब Ila का character आते हैं, very important character. Then the narrator talks about Ila's story and Ila, Robi and उसके जो cousins के story है वो बताते. They were 16 when Ila visited their house. They means both the narrator and Ila, they were 16 when Ila for the first time came to their house. The narrator recalls how he, Ila and Robi talk with Tridip. All the cousins, they are big fan of Tridip. But mainly narrator बहुत ही ज़्यादा attached थे Tridip के साथ. Ila and Robi, they can't feel the same emotion. Ila has traveled a lot, but for the narrator, Tridip is his only world. अब इसका कारण क्या है? क्योंकि Ila, from her childhood, Ila has traveled a lot. Ila has seen the world so many times. लेकिन नैरेटर के लिए ये बहुत डिफिकल्ट था कि इस पूरे वर्ल्ड को देखना, डिफरेंट जगह में ट्रैवल करना, टूर करना. सो फॉर द नरेटर, त्रिदीप becomes the mouthpiece of the whole world. And whatever Tridip says, the narrator believes it to be true because उनके पास तो नॉलेज नहीं है वर्ल्ड में. तो त्रिदीप जो भी बताते हैं नैरेटर को वही लगता है कि देखो ये कितना नॉलेजेबल है. बट इला के पास ये इमोशन नहीं है बिकॉज इला हैज ट्रैवल्ड अ लॉट, शी हैज नोन ऑलरेडी मेनी थिंग्स. तो उसके पास अगर आप कोई गलत बात बताओगे तो वो पकड़ लेगा. But the narrator is a very safe listener from Tridip's perspective also. So narrator believes that Tridip has a great knowledge. Tridip is the only world for him who can get him acquainted through the acquainted with the outside world. When he is in London, he often spends time with Ila. He means the narrator. The narrator has an adventurous mind, but Ila teases him a lot. Ila realizes that whatever Tridip says, always it is not true. Tridip sometimes gossips, he sometimes spreads rumors. तो इला नैरेटर को कहते हैं कि क्यों इतना ज्यादा तुम पसंद करते हो त्रिदीप को. सो इला टीजेस हिम अ लॉट. Tridip once told the narrator that Ila's emotion and imagination never traveled. This is a very important line. तो जब नैरेटर आकर त्रिदीप को ये पूछते हैं कि इला क्यों ऐसे अक्यूज करता है कि जो भी बात तुम कह रहे हो वो सच नहीं. Then Tridip told the narrator that no, Ila traveled, that is true, but Ila had no emotion towards the whole world and towards the experience of her travel. So she has traveled only physically, but her mental uh, mindset or her emotion and imagination, they have never traveled. That is why Ila is so much practical, Ila is so much logical. Ila doesn't feel any kind of excitement to listen other adventurous stories because she cannot feel the charm. Okay, तो ये बात वो बताते हैं. Now, next आते हैं हम. Ila visits Calcutta mostly in summer vacation. Now we will talk about the relationship between Ila and the narrator, how it grows up. He shows photos to the narrator and explains those things. Ila can always describe the events captured in the photos in detail, but she is absent from the photos. तो नैरेटर ने ये नोटिस किया था कि उन्हीं फोटोज को इला बहुत अच्छे से डिस्क्राइब कर पाते हैं जिसमें वो खुद प्रेजेंट नहीं. So it is also a very funny thing that if you are present inside a photo and if you are telling someone about that, then it appears to be very difficult to convince that person. ठीक है, अगर आप कोई गलत बात भी बताते हो तो आप खुद अगर उस पिक्चर में प्रेजेंट रहोगे तो ये बताना बहुत मुश्किल. लेकिन अगर आपके पास कोई एक ऐसी पिक्चर है जिसमें आप प्रेजेंट नहीं हो तो आप उसके लिए उसके ऊपर बेस करके आप कुछ भी बता सकते हैं एंड सामने वालों को पता भी नहीं चलेगा कि आप सच कह रहे हो या फिर झूठ कह रहे हो. राइट. So very interestingly, Ila only described those photos in which she is absent. This is very interesting thing. Ila shows the narrator the picture of her boyfriend जिसका नाम है Nick. Now, अब दूसरे टाइम पर हम आते हैं. It is written in flashback. The narrator recalls a time when he was 10. Ila, Queen Victoria and Tridip visited their house. Queen Victoria is actually Tridip's mother. Ila had a new nurse called Lizzie. Lizzie, the name is very closely associated with lizard, right? So यहाँ पर भी एक funny incident है. She told the story of a snake and how Ila was afraid of it. The narrator believes that Tridip's imagination is much more precise than his. Tridip is always an eponymous character for the narrator. The narrator takes Ila to a building where Alan Treshausen, May's brother, worked. तो जो भी हिस्टोरिकल जगह है या फिर फैमिली हिस्ट्री के साथ कनेक्टेड जो भी जगह है वो नैरेटर को बहुत पसंद आते हैं. तो वो इला को ले जाते हैं एक पुराने बिल्डिंग में एंड वो ये बात बताते हैं कि देखो यही जो जगह है यहाँ पर काम किया था मे प्राइसेस ब्रदर एलन ट्रेसाउसन व्हेन ही वाज अ सोल्जर. अच्छा, गीतू बफरिंग हो रहा है. यस, इट मे बी योर नेटवर्क इशू बिकॉज आई हैव वेरी फाइन वाईफाई कनेक्शन. तो आई थिंक मेरे साइड से तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं है एंड बाकी सबका आ रहे हैं. तो एक बार आप रिफ्रेश कर लो. अगर फिर भी बफरिंग हो रहा है तो यू कैन वॉच द रिकॉर्डेड सेशन लेटर. So Alan Treshausen, May's brother, worked there. Queen Victoria invites Ila's family to visit their house at Rai Bajar. The narrator, along with his family, goes to meet Ila's family. ये past एक story वो recall कर रहे हैं narrator. And he finds out her resemblance with Maya Devi. Her means Thamma's resemblance. The narrator feels very shocked to see that Thamma very closely resembles Maya Devi. एंड रोबी वॉज ठाम्मा's फेवरेट. जितना वो त्रिदीप को डिसलाइक करते थे उतना ही रोबी के साथ ठाम्मा का बहुत अटैचमेंट था. रोबी इज एक्चुअली द सन ऑफ मायादेवी. त्रिदीप informed him that he was beaten by a notorious boy. He means Robi. Robi was beaten by a notorious boy. Now, अब एक दूसरे टाइम पर हम आते हैं. तो स्टोरी मतलब प्लॉट समरी करना बहुत मुश्किल है बिकॉज बीच बीच में प्लॉट का ब्रेक हो जाते हैं एंड कोई दूसरे स्टोरी वहां पर आ जाती है. That is why it appears to be very complicated. If you read the text, it appears to be very complicated. अच्छा, रेन फॉल हो रहा है. ओके, इसलिए शायद नेटवर्क का कोई प्रॉब्लम. चलो, तो थामा रिकॉल्स द टाइम ऑफ द टेररिस्ट मूवमेंट इन बंगाल. अब हम आते हैं एक हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड पे. थामा रिकॉल्स दैट and during that time a little boy was imprisoned because he tried to kill an English magistrate. All these stories Thamma always told to her grandson, that is the narrator. तो अब ये स्टोरी थामा रिकॉल कर रहे हैं. साइमल्टेनियसली दूसरे साइड में हमें देखने को मिलता है कि Ila asks the narrator to play a game she played with Nick, son of Mrs. Price. The narrator's father visited Mrs. Price when Nick was 13. And the character of Lionel Treshausen is also given, who is actually a jack of all trades. ठीक है. तो पार्ट बाय पार्ट कैरेक्टर का डिस्क्रिप्शन है. मे एक्सप्लेन्स दैट ट्रैवल मीन्स different thing for different people and thinks whether the narrator likes Nick or not. लाइक्स नहीं होगा, वेदर द नरेटर विल लाइक निक और नॉट. अभी तक तो निक के साथ मुलाकात नहीं हुआ है but May talks about this thing. Finally, the narrator meets Nick 17 years later. आज से 17 years later, again it is a kind of recalling. Tridip tells the narrator about how the streets were destroyed. यहाँ पर हम वापस आते हैं उस टाइम में जो ठाम्मा रिकॉल कर रहे थे अभी, द टेररिस्ट मूवमेंट इन बंगाल. So how the streets were destroyed due to bomb blast. Tridip tells the narrator about the thing. But Robi thinks it as a gossip because Robi को ये पता था कि बॉम्ब जब डिस्कवर हुआ था वो बहुत बाद का टाइम है एंड त्रिदीप जिस टाइम के बारे में बता रहे हैं उस टाइम में बॉम्ब नहीं था. तो Robi clearly denies that it is a gossip, don't believe it. But the narrator believes in every word of Tridip and the narrator is enchanted, thrilled after listening stories. The narrator watches every photo in Mrs. Price's house. इन मिसेस प्राइसेस हाउस. ठीक है, अब उस स्टोरी के साथ वापस आते हैं जहां पर मे प्राइस के साथ नरेटर का इंटरेक्शन चल रहा. Then we come on to the portion when Ila invites narrator to play a game. The narrator gets angry when Ila accuses him of interfering her doll Magda's room. Magda is the name of Ila's doll, but Ila doesn't think her as a doll. Ila thinks her as a baby, as her own baby. In the morning, Ila changes her dress before the narrator. From this part onwards, the relationship between Ila and narrator takes a new dimension. They are not just cousins, but they have some kind of bodily attachment. The narrator feels attracted to her and wants to touch her, but Ila removes him and tells him to do his own work. She narrates her bonding with Magda to avoid the narrator's lust. नेक्स्ट क्या होता है, बहुत साल बाद ठाम्मा ग्रेजुअली फॉल्स इल एंड एवरीवन सस्पेक्ट्स दैट शी विल डाई सून. अब एक क्राइसिस का सिचुएशन चल रहा है. ठीक है. She insists that Ila should not live there. In spite of her illness, Thamma is very much adamant that Ila should not be allowed to live there because Thamma also dislikes Ila and Ila's character. Thamma feels very much pain due to the borders drawn with blood by the British. So here comes the issue of partition. Exactly, it is talking about the partition of India, and the border between the two countries are drawn with blood, and these are drawn by the British people deliberately. They have separated the two countries. So Thamma feels very much painful. Thamma feels very much pain for that. She considers Ila as a whore, a slut, as she lives in England. तो थामा इज अ कंजर्वेटिव लेडी. तो थामा के दिमाग में ये एक आइडिया था कि जो भी फॉरेन में रहते हैं उनके पास कोई मोरालिटी नहीं है, उनके कैरेक्टर बहुत ही लूज कैरेक्टर होता है, एंड दैट गर्ल अपीयर्स टू बी अ फोर. So as Ila lives in England, Thamma believes that Ila is a whore, Ila is a prostitute. The narrator defends Ila and Thamma goes angry. The narrator defends Ila, Thamma goes angry. Robbie becomes a leader in college and drinks at pubs. Gradually, Robbie is also adopting the Western fashion, Western style. Hammer warns the narrator that he will be expelled from school soon due to his obscene obsession. Obscene obsession means the narrator is attracted towards Ila and they have some kind of bodily attraction. So, Hammer warns the narrator that don't do so, otherwise you will be expelled from school. Gradually, her condition worsens. But the narrator realizes his true love for Ila. The narrator definitely loves Ila. Unfortunately, Ila only flirts with the narrator and loves Nick. तो इससे आपका एंड होता है फर्स्ट पार्ट गोइंग अवे. तो इन द फर्स्ट पार्ट वी हैव फाउंड द characters, major characters are introduced like the character of Thamma, Trideep, Ila, May Price, and narrator के साथ हर एक character का relationship के बारे में हमें यहाँ पर पता चल रहा है. That is the narrative technique. कि first of all the major characters are introduced, then the relationship with the narrator it is focused, and उसमें हमने ये भी देखा कि the character of Thamma, she is a very authoritative lady. She has that kind of administrative skill inside her, but her health uh, uh, worsens. इससे आपका first part end होता है कि Thamma falls ill and the narrator and Robbie they are gradually getting out of control. Robbie जो Thamma का बहुत ही favorite था, Robbie gradually adopts Western culture, Western tradition. He drinks in pubs, he enjoys parties, ठीक है, and the narrator feels obsessively attracted towards Ila. ठीक है, तो ये है about the first part, that is the end of today's class, and in tomorrow's class we will talk about the second part and the last part of the novel, that is coming home. Okay. So that is the end of today's class. Thank you all for joining. This is the link of my Telegram channel. The link is also given in the description box. So those of you who have not joined yet, please join to get notification of all important classes. And these are the timings of your classes. So tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. we will meet again and we will talk about the summary of the second part, that is coming home. So don't forget to join me live. Please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to get notification. Okay, so thank you all. Bye bye everyone. Good night. See you all tomorrow at 8:30 p.m.